everyone. Welcome back to Books and Bubbles. We're so excited to continue on with our Onyx Storm theories. I know we had you waiting there. Without further ado, I think we're going to go into our next theory.
So we've had some great conversation about a lot of lore. And I want to move on to the dragons, but I do need a drink. I don't know about you guys. Can't do this one sober because of Andarna.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to drown my sorrows a little bit.
We have our drinks now. I made a alcoholic root beer float in honor of our boy Riddick.
Oh.
I think, for one, the brown for the root beer, brown dragon. And two, I just think that he's the type of guy that would find this delicious.
Yeah, cheers to
cheers.
Riddick. Hopefully not being venom. It's been so long since I've had a root beer float.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. So we finally meet Andarna's kind, the Irids, and man, are they assholes. What did you guys think about this first encounter where they're talking to Andarna for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I also thought, man, are these guys assholes?
I felt so bad for Andarna.
She was so excited to tell them like every little detail of her life that she could remember. And they were like, wow, you repulse me. You are not part of our family. You are shamed now and we will never talk to you ever again. This is so insane. But I also was thinking, what do the Irids know about Venin and Wyvern?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like in the other two books, it was very built up that there's a secret weapon and we thought it was the Irids. But how can a pacifist be a weapon? That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I think that maybe because they are such pacifists, it's more about the knowledge that they bring to the table for being able to cure them. And they also have sky magic. So I think it might have something to do with the ground versus the sky. It's all about restoring balance. So I don't think that there's any way to really defeat the Venin without curing them, because the fact that they exist is the problem.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
I think that also goes into more of what they said about what could cure the Venin. They could evolve or their offspring. And I feel like that is just further evidence that Violet is going to be part Venin. She was born to a Venin. If we're saying mom's Venin, Violet has to be Venin. It's a fact. You're all on this trip with me. And your tinfoil hats are on too. I'm just saying, if we're accepting that as a thing, she has to be Venin. So it makes complete sense to me that they would say that, and then she's going to be the thing to bring the balance back.
Gonna die on that hill, huh, Paige?
She's like, I'm not dying on it if it's true. You're all going to be up here with me. So I don't want to talk about this for long because it still makes me really sad. But we do have to address the bond being broken. And I want to know what all your thoughts and feelings were. I know for me, this was maybe the second or third time I ugly cried while reading this.
100%. I was devastated at this point. I'm shocked Andarna left, to be honest. And with the stuff that happened afterwards with Violet just basically becoming a zombie for a few days.
Unfortunately for me, I felt like I saw this coming a little bit. I didn't know if Andarna was going to die or leave or like what was going to happen. But I definitely was nervous about Andarna going into this book because of the Target exclusive having the solo golden dragon, and it looked like she was flying away. Made me very nervous. I didn't know, does that mean Violet's only going to have Andarna or is only going to have Taryn? I feel like if Taryn's ever going to be lost, and I really hope that never happens, it would have to be way later on in the books because it's too early to lose Violet and Xaden. And then in our group text with one of our girlfriends, she sent a text message that just said Andarna with crying faces. So then I was like, oh, I was right. That sucks. I am not to that part in the book yet, but I thought something was going to happen. So as soon as this scene was coming up, I was just stoned. I was not letting it happen. But then as it was going on and they said, you can come to us for a few years, I was, oh, she's going to be back by the end of the book because they can manipulate time.
Oh.
I know they said that was her gift, but I don't know if that's just something that Irids can do. And the Irids just talked about themselves like, we are magic. And I'm just so hung up on that. I don't know what you can achieve when you're just peaceful like that and you have that balance. So I feel like she's not gone. And I was not really worried. I wish I could cry.
I am still curious about, is Andarna truly gone? I believe in my heart and soul that she will come back and bond to Violet, and I'm curious, and like what makes me like hold on the hope was because of Violet still having that second signet. So I am so curious if she will be able to hold on to that or if it's going to disappear.
Wait, so are you saying when she came back, you don't think she came back still bonded to Violet?
I don't think so. I think they have to rebond.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know what that looks like because I know the bonding happens during threshing and they just pick them and they read their name. There might have to be something that reestablishes their connection, but I'm not sure.
When I was thinking about the whole time manipulation, if that is a thing, has she been gone for 3 or 4 years and she's just back now? Or was she just visiting? I really wasn't certain if she went to them and said, oh no, we're coming back. I have to go. I have to be with her right now. Or maybe she was going through something very similar to what Violet did with her bed rot, where they were like, wow, this is a very real bond. You need to go back.
Speaking of this bed rot, I have a theory on this. Because we know in previous books, it's been referred to as certain riders have got what they wanted, but it cost them everything. And we've always assumed that that meant they turned venom. I believe what Violet experienced was her losing her bond. And I think that's what they mean when they say, but it cost them everything, is that they somehow lost their bond with their dragon. Because we watched Violet just be like, I don't even want to live anymore. And it had to be Taryn that came in his presence. I'm wondering if that's part of becoming fully venom, is that you give up your bond in that process because you lose your soul. And that's when you truly lose everything.
I like that.
Yeah. All right. So we finally get the big reveal of Violet's second signet. And one of us actually got it right. Miss Sarah, how do you feel right now?
I had a big I told you so moment. I knew it was dreamwalking, everything in me, and really hoping it would be. Didn't have a ton of theories, but I had an I told you so moment.
Awesome. How does everybody else feel?
I was pleasantly surprised with it because Brandon was reading along with me, and Brandon had thought she was Dreamwalker the entire time. So I've got a few different theories. I'll wait until everybody else goes into it, but I think this dreamwalking thing could actually be really cool, and I have to give all the credit to Brandon.
Oh, yeah. I will just say I don't have much thoughts, but I think she's 100% going to start manipulating everybody by going into their dreams, and I can't wait to see how that goes.
I'm also super curious how it works because when she was dreamwalking, she was in the same room as that person. So I'm curious to see once she can train her signet and really figure out like the full extent of it, because it was super easy to walk into Xaden's dream. They already have a bond. But then when she started dreamwalking into somebody else's dream, that's so crazy.
I actually think there's somebody that might be able to teach her how to use this signet. Ooh. And I think that it's going to be Bruin. I think that he's also a dreamwalker. And I think that he's a dreamwalker because he seems to address Violet in the dream. Like he can manipulate it too. And I think that she's going to be his balance. And I think that's going to be a massive thing that happens with it.
Oh.
I'm very excited to see where it goes because he says something where he calls himself a nightmare. And it makes me think about the nightmares that they were having. And it was like he was trying to convince them to turn. So It makes me wonder if this is how they could potentially also be building their army. Is could he be dream walking into people's heads and convincing them to turn or putting them into these situations? Because it almost seemed like a lot of foreshadowing before Xaden actually turned. This whole scenario, he'd seen it over and over again. So then in that moment, I think that probably influenced his decision.
I feel like hopefully she'll end up being able to control who she's dreamwalking to. And I hope that she's going to be able to dreamwalk to Xaden still. And that could almost be a way to sort of communicate with him because he could sense her presence in his dreams already. So that's my hope going forward for sure.
Ooh, that would also be like a safe place for them to communicate. Hopefully, as long as Bruin's not hanging out there. Oh my gosh.
I'm also curious of the implications with the dream walking because we haven't really heard a lot about it. And it seemed like Xaden was pretty freaked out by it. Maybe it's worse than even mind reading, it seemed. Maybe that's because you're vulnerable when you dream. Your whole mind's open, like your whole subconscious is open when you dream. So
I agree. I think that's what they were alluding to when they said your shields are down when you sleep. So I think they were kind of alluding to like how dangerous or how powerful this signet actually is.
Do you think Violet could then get into a dragon's dream through the rider and maybe could access their memories that way?
That's very interesting. Could Violet's signet create a dream in the dreamless sleep?
Brandon and I talked about this quite a bit. He thinks that she's going to basically be able to just inception everything, planting ideas in people's heads. But that's what Bruin's doing. He's convincing people potentially to turn venom, or at least that's how he did it with Xaden. But he thinks that maybe she can start planting ideas and maybe even be able to infiltrate the venom through their dreams. Because if their shields are down too, that's a perfect time to be able to get to them. Part of what I was thinking about, if she can go into their dreams, and I do think that she could be this cure for the venom. And something that I like to think about is that they say 2 different things that can change a soul: love and war. And I like to think that Violet is going to be able to show them how to love somehow, or change their souls in their dreams. I like to think that maybe if she does have the gods backing her and kind of watching out for her, and that's how she's being used, that Loyal will come in that way later on. I just think it would be really cool if she could just be like, you don't have to have nightmares. Like, you can love. This can happen. I wonder how awful Bruin's being to these people, because Xaden makes a comment about it. I wonder how many people want to kill their sage. Is it just Bruin's? How much choice did any of these people have? Like, how scared were they if he really was saying, I'm a nightmare? I don't know. I took this very literally.
I like where you're going with it, though, because it does make sense with all of the things we learned about nature's balance, that we don't know what Bruin's signet is. So that could totally be what it is.
Oh, I just feel like that's what it is because he talked to her in the tree. So I've just, again, accepted things as fact. That's how it works. Violet's a venom. Bruin's a dreamwalker.
You live in your own reality.
I do live in my own reality for sure. Definitely with these books.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Quinn's not dead. I don't know. Yeah. She could actually still be dead. But I still think it was evidence that the poison does something to turn you or make you venom. Because I do think she was somehow channeling with the poison.
Gotcha.
I'm not letting that go.
I'll let you believe that.
But I do know Rebecca said that she doesn't like doing the whole fake death thing. But they also did not burn or bury that body. And that's all I'll say on that. Going back to Bruin and him turning people potentially, their opinions on him as their sage and how they feel if they want to be a part of it or if they want to kill him. How do you guys think Xaden's new brother's feeling right now?
I think it depends on who it is.
I know. I've got a few different thoughts, but...
Should we all say who we think the new brother is?
At the same time?
3, 2, 1. Bodhi. Oh, we're not.
That was not the same.
We're not feeling the same way. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay, fun. Should we just go down the line then for our top choice and why?
Yes. Okay. Who wants to? Sarah, do you want to start us off?
I thought it could be Garrick. I did have a couple other, but I would love to hear why everybody else chose who they chose.
So I specifically don't think it can be Garrick or Bodhi because this is a new brother, and both of those people have been kind of brother figures already to Xaden, and they're not obviously actually his brothers, but they're people that have been referred to as almost a brother to him. So I think it can't be them. And Xaden's reaction to finding out that this person channeled was disbelief, not the devastation he would feel if it was one of his closest people in his life. So I feel like it's going to be Auric because he said earlier in the book, I will fight in this war, most likely die, and do so knowing that I protected others. And since he's a precog, he could have seen what was going to happen and willingly done it. And it would make sense why he couldn't deliver his message to Violet himself because he knew he had to go elsewhere.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Auric is not my top choice, but he was definitely still on my list. I was paying a lot of attention to Auric overall because there was a mention, it was very brief, but somebody said something about Sigil, Terran, and Mulvik were the only ones that could make a longer flight and powerful enough to do so. So I knew he was potentially going to be involved, so it made sense to me that he could have gone with him and would have been with Xaden and Violet for these last moments and everything, so it made sense that he was the brother to me. But going back to what he was gifted by Zanal, maybe that was part of his warning. But my top choice is Bodhi.
Okay. Mine too.
I think my top reason that I think that he may have turned is because Rebecca made that comment in the Fantasy Girl podcast interview. They weren't enough or never given enough. At first, it made me think of Garrick's Rusty Bucket. And then going back to what we were talking about earlier, does Bodhi have a second signet or not? We learned that his counter signet ability wasn't working with the venom. So he was basically defenseless. And if he truly doesn't have a second signet to help protect him or allow him to still be a part of this war, I can see him feeling very defeated. I also can see that maybe since he was with Xaden, and we know that Xaden's second signet had seemed more heightened throughout the book, that he may have learned on the battlefield. I could see Xaden making a last-ditch effort to try to communicate with Bodhi using his abilities. Violet caught him doing it. He surprised himself. So I don't think it necessarily would have even been an intentional thing with Xaden. It was a choice or it wasn't, but I can still see it happening. And in that moment, Bodhi would have learned that Xaden had been lying to him.
About having a second signet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that he would have felt absolutely rock bottom. He also really wanted to be a part of Quest Squad and was not with anybody. And he said, if I had a second signet, could I come? And I feel like if he did have a second signet, he would have told her because he seemed really left out.
Yeah. To that point with the second signet, he watched Garrick, Imogen, and Liam all have a second signet knowingly. And those were his buds. So I can see this resentment or this left out feeling building for a long time if he truly doesn't have a second signet. And then maybe this thing does happen with Xaden where he realizes, oh crap, you have one too. And just amplifying these feelings of maybe I'm not enough, maybe I don't belong, all that doubt.
I don't know if I really see the doubt and stuff like that with Bodhi, but I did definitely see, don't leave me with your mess. I don't want the throne. I don't want the country. He knew Xaden so well. He knew Xaden was going to self-sacrifice.
I think that just adds to it. Another weight in his pack.
Yeah, because that's where I thought it was Bodhi, because I thought Bodhi would have done everything he could to try to save Xaden, and it would have drug him down too.
And going back to that pack that Bodhi is carrying and it's adding weight, I think you're absolutely right, Tawny. I do think that does play a part in it. My next block in the pack is that, to your point, was unsuccessful in countering the Venom signet. And I bet in this moment, that was a ton of weight because he genuinely believed he was doing it because he thought that Theophany was a lightning wielder. He was sitting there, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And Violet was like, you're not doing it, you're not doing it. And had to get rescued by his dragon or a dragon. I can't remember if it was really his, but that had to have been humiliating too. And another brick from Imogen's POV, we know that Bodhi's dragon is caught between two wyvern and it's a deathly fight. They didn't say that Kerr died, but it sounded like Kerr was fighting for their life and had potentially fatal injuries. So all of these things are piling up in his little pack that he's been holding and it's getting so heavy. And he's maybe potentially watching his dragon almost die or start to die. And he thinks, I'm going to die without my dragon. And I watched Jack Barlow, or no, Jack Barlow was able to live without his dragon. So maybe in that moment, he made the choice. And that's why we saw him across the field retching. Because holy shit, my dragon lived. Or he was, holy shit, I just survived my dragon dying. Or I don't know. That's just my master theory.
I feel like I'd be so on board, but I think I'm going to have to die on the hill that it can't be Bodhi or Garrick because of the new brother thing. I feel like those are already brothers to him. So new brother, I know that it's a different sense of brother because it's Venom. I get hung up on that word for some reason.
And that's totally fine.
I completely agree with you. It's just so hard after she made that comment in that interview. I wish I'd never heard it. Because I think I was way more suspicious of Arik before then, and I had way more theories on it, and I now cannot remember any of them because I went so far down the Bodhi hole, and I wish I could. Oh, I wish we didn't say that. Can we get rid of that? That didn't sound.
I went so far down the Bodhi hole.
Thank you for that.
My Bodhi hole.
The Bodhi hole is
So far down the Bodhi hole.
So far down the Bodhi hole.
We got so much good stuff here, guys. I wish I could remember my theories for Arik, but I was so focused on everything with Bodhi that I just completely forgot everything and I didn't even include any of it in my notes. But I think that you might be right, and it did really spark something with me too. So I'm almost there with you, but it was just too much if he doesn't have a second signet. If he has a second signet, actually, then I'm totally wrong. And I agree with you. A lot of people thought it was Garrick, like what Sarah was saying. And it brings me back to the green poison theory because A lot of people were thinking it was Garrick because he was so far gone. He had nothing left to give, really. He had just walked too far.
Yeah.
And they were talking about the stones underneath his feet leaching color. And I think people were really using that as evidence that Garrick was the new brother. But I think that it speaks to whatever that poison does.
Did anybody have Brennan on their sus list?
I did think about that for a little bit because he said the person who turned has watched him go through this for 5 months. And Brennan's somebody who's been very closely working with him to try to cure him. So he's seen firsthand how it impacted Xaden and how hard it's been. It would make sense.
I mean, I believe Odie. But Brennan was also on my sus list because he did just watch Mira almost die in his arms from failing to mend her. And I could see him in that moment just going for the source and trying to save his sister.
I will say on the Rebecca interview thing, I'm trying this time to not read too far into answers she gives to things like that because I was so set on the distance wielding thing because of an answer she gave about there was this one specific thing in the book that was a dead giveaway. And I feel like there was one specific thing that was such a dead giveaway she could be a distance wielder. So I'm trying to not read too far into that. I'm probably just being blind to it and you guys are probably completely right and I'm just living in my own little universe over here.
I spent way too much time trying to figure out the 5 months, and I think I actually have to disagree with Brennan because it says that he had been through the journey with him for the past 5 months, and as far as I can tell when I go back in the timeline, he's only been Venom for about 5 months. And if that is the case, and if I have my math right, Brennan didn't find out until later.
I mean, the same could be said for Arik, too. Right?
Well, Arik's precog, so he might have seen him turn.
He could have,
I think he's still definitely in the running.
So, speaking of Xaden's brothers, we still have Jack Barlow. He refuses to die. But we did interestingly find out that Theophany did try to kill him off. And I am curious what you guys think that Jack Barlow knows. Or if you're thinking the same way I am, that he has to know something for them to want to kill him.
Or he's just annoying.
I don't necessarily disagree with you because I was wondering if it's just you're useless to me now and I'm going to kill you because that's kind of what they did with Panchek. But I also feel like he has to know something. What do you guys
I thought it said that he opens his mouth to anybody that asks anything. So I also wouldn't be surprised if that was true and they killed him for that reason.
He was being interrogated. So he's just got information in general that he's not been giving them that he can just tell them anything about the Venom. So I think that it could just be that they don't want him blabbing about anything, but he was only talking to, I think, Xaden and Violet when he was actually giving information. I don't think it even has to be some spectacular news that they had.
I was spinning my head on this and I wasn't sure if you guys had any concrete theories on it.
I hope that it's maybe just more about leadership and who's who. That's what I want to know more about. So I like to think that that's what the secret is. I mean, anything beyond what we know would be great.
Who do you guys think the 4 missing riders are?
I for sure think Xaden, Garrick, Bodhi, and then I'm torn between the 4th if it's Riddick or Dane or Arik. I wasn't sure who the final one was, but doesn't mean my first 3 are solid either.
Those are the same few people that I was thinking between as well.
I feel like for me, since there's 4 missing riders, that tells me 3 of them for sure have to be marked ones so that Melgrim can't see their moves or what they're up to. And so when I think about who they are, 1 for sure has to be Xaden because obviously he gone. And then Garrick and Bodhi, I feel like just makes sense to go with him, especially if I'm kind of sus that Bodhi's the new initiative. And then my 4th one is probably Arik. Since the battle with Theophany in the middle of the book, he's been like on it with this is going to happen and this is going to happen. So I feel like he's just too valuable to Xaden and what they're up to that he would be with them.
I 100% agree with that group. We know that there's also some dragon eggs that are missing, and I think that Garrick's distance wielding is going to be huge in delivering all of those to all these islands. I do think that would be further evidence that he had turned if he was able to travel that way, because that would have been the only way that he could have gone with them, because his dragon can't travel the distance directly after the fight, or they could just be hiding or whatever. With Ark specifically, I do think it has to be him again because his dragon can handle the distance in the flight.
Yeah. Okay, so before we talk about Violet's missing 12-hour memory, I know we kind of talked about things that were happening around that same time, but Sarah's got a little bubble break for us, some champagne for the newlyweds. So I think we're going to take that break.
Welcome back, and let's cheers to the newlyweds.
Cheers! Delicious. Champagne.
Violet wakes up with a broken arm,
Mhm.
12 hours of missing memories,
Mhm.
and a ring on her finger.
Yep.
Shocking. Did you guys expect that?
If you're asking me if I expected that they'd get married, absolutely. And I can talk about that for a long time. If you're saying I expected her to just wake up with amnesia after this battle, no.
And then the cryptic message from Andarna of she won't let them kill her.
Oh, dude, yeah.
What's going on
Let's
there?
dive in. Which piece do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about the 12 hours of missing memories first. I fully believe that after Xaden had the whole shadow field incident, they came back, they reconnected. Violet reached out to him with her love, and he grabbed onto that pretty hard. And he had that moment with Sigale, and she's like, if Taryn lets you, is Taryn giving Violet away, kind of like the father figure? And I think they got shit done. Those 12 hours were probably a whirlwind for them. I think they went to a temple and got married. I think they stole dragon eggs. And I think they started a coup.
I will tell you, I don't believe they got married in those 12 hours.
I do not believe they did either.
I believe they've already been married.
Yes. They've been married since chapter
4.
Okay. Yes. The minute that he says, you could be the Duchess of Erasia, I was like, she's already the Duchess of Erasia. What are you talking about? We've done this before.
Yep.
I will die on this hill.
Yeah.
Maggie, take us away.
Okay, so I don't have the book in front of me, so apologies. I'm not going to be word for word here. So we get to chapter 4, and Violet says something about, I didn't just sleep, I slept. And at this point, Paige and I are tandem reading, and we both kind of like looked at it, and we're like, huh. And Paige goes,
Imogen's been here.
yes.
I've been so staring at Imogen ever since Varish talked about her because I keep thinking something bad's going to happen. I'm pretty confident Imogen's on the right side of things. I still cannot find any evidence to convince me otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But, Imogen's been here. And she said something about working out with Imogen the night before, too.
Yes, she did. And then she looks over to Xaden, and Xaden's abnormally sleeping in, or something to that effect, where he's also zonked. Okay? And so that also had me go, huh. It was immediate, them going after each other a little, and then he has his little channeling moment, and he goes, oh, I forgot. That's weird. How do you forget that you're Venom? And then Violet goes, I forgot too. This is weird. Why did we forget that we're Venom here? I don't feel like this was just caught up in the moment. I'm wondering if Miss Imogen wiped a little bit too much of the memory from the night before.
Yes, or they were just groggy because of the mind wipe, needing to just get their senses back and everything.
And then from that point on, he's calling Violet love.
Yes.
Yes.
This bothered me so much because I was like, stop. You're making it felt so obvious because I was like, that's never happened before.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why are you not talking about being married? Why are you guys doing this?
But they were, because she was his consort.
I know, but
It was right there.
It seemed like Xaden maybe remembered more of it than Violet, though, because I think Xaden knew. I think he was also kind of like mocking her throughout the book. So I am confused about which memories were wiped from who.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that both of them have lost bits and pieces, or maybe that's the way that Xaden was trying to remember.
He's also been having daily meetings at this point with Bodhi, Garrick, and Noellen. Yeah, he's having daily meetings. So I'm wondering if this was planned. His memory got wiped so that he forgot. And then somebody was, oh yeah, remember you're married now. Like, this is part of the plan. Because he's been scheming since the beginning. So
Why would they wipe his memory, though, and then he still call her love?
I think they wiped his memory because at this point, he's being very closed off with him being Venom. And he's continuously saying to Violet, I don't want to know your plans. I don't want to know what you're up to. I don't want it being held against us, because he's still trying to figure out what being Venom means. So I think in the beginning, they might have just been overly cautious in wiping his memories.
So we think it was his idea to get married.
It could have been both of their ideas. I don't know whose idea it was, but I think they did it in chapter 4 or right before chapter 4.
But then if their memories are wiped, then why would him calling her love be significant? And then how, when he like says that they're married in that Isle Kingdom, he wouldn't have actually known that though.
I think that with his daily meetings, they're telling him what he needs to know to make the next move. So I think at some point they told Xaden, oh, you and Violet are already married, by the way. I don't know. Yeah. I know it's a little reachy, but that's my theory.
So I had a theory with Xaden calling Violet love that it was not because they were married. Because I didn't think they were married until the very end. So it's like,
oh, okay.
New theory for me. I thought it was more because he was holding on to their love so much that he had to keep reminding himself the entire time why he was doing what he was doing.
That's also what I thought. And especially when Venom don't feel love, I think he was still trying to ground himself and remember he can feel love. And it was his way of not turning, essentially.
I felt like it was something that he knew, but Violet didn't. Because I think, again, like what Maggie was saying, I think it was part of his plan. And he was talking with Sigale about, no, she said she's going to help Tyrandor, and this is the plan, and she already agreed. And I think they were alluding to that lost time a few times throughout the book. So I think that he definitely lost some memories too, or had some kind of a wipe, but I think that he either remembers them getting married or remembers the meetings about it, and then they're like, yep, we did that thing that we talked about, but he has no idea what Violet's plans are.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think it's messy, but...
Yeah, and did you talk about the scar?
Oh, no, I didn't mention the scar. Yes. Okay.
Further
proof.
There, I wish we could find the part in the book. It's chapter 4.
It is chapter 4.
Can we grab the book real quick?
Yeah. Yeah, let's just pull out the sacred texts.
Yes. On page 31, this is actually the middle of chapter 3. We were wrong about it being chapter 4. But it says... I turn under the warmth of the blankets, fully expecting to find Xaden wide awake given the hour, but he's fast asleep with one arm curled around his pillow, the other with its freshly pink scar lying on the blanket between us. And what do we know about the Temple of Dune?
They cut you.
They cut you. I think that this was his freshly pink scar from the Temple of Dune, because if this had been anything to do with any kind of like a Tirish custom or something, it would have been silver. And I believe that they still describe the scars after they go to Dune the same way later on in the book. I would need to find another page, which I'm not going to put everybody through right now, but I do think that happens. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Come for me in the comments.
I don't know the full lore on this theory. I've just dipped my toes into it, but it's interesting that you're connecting that to Dune, because there is a theory that Xaden is the embodiment of Dune. There's a couple of times in the series where he's described as being like Dune. And then there's also a symbolism thing. When they go to Umbreon, they specifically make note of the emblem that they have, and it's 2 crossed swords. Mm-hmm. And it's something like 10 times in Fourth Wing and like 15 times in Iron Flame. It is mentioned that Xaden has these 2 crossed swords on his back. Such a random thing to say over 10 times in each book. Yep. So there is something there that could be not related to them having gotten married there, and could be more just that he is somehow so connected to Dune.
I can see that too. And that is part of what made me think that he would still potentially be the blue dragon, if there's something to be said for the gods and having one rider for each.
When do we think that they got the blessing? Wasn't it from Dune? We think they got that blessing because Violet saw that at the end, which was what made me believe they got married at the end of the book and not the beginning of the book.
The emerald was missing so much earlier on, though.
Yeah.
I feel like they got married and he's like, now I got to make the ring, and then it would be presented to her at the right time.
Yeah.
So I have a different theory on when they got married, but if they got married so long ago, what do you think they did for those 12 missing hours?
Oh, I think they hauled ass to the Isle Kingdoms.
Yeah, I think it was just all about the dragon eggs and whatever they were setting up there. I think that they probably also met with Auric. Again, I think whatever happened during that time, I think Auric was a part of it. And there's just the comments about Terrence Sigale, Mulvic being able to handle that kind of distance together. And I feel like that's the time that it would have mattered. So I think that maybe they had some little future discussions with Auric and maybe hatch some plans.
Well, so now I'm curious what we think Xaden and Sigale were talking about that they had to ask Taryn about, because that's also what makes me hold on to the belief that they got married at the end, just because what else would they have wanted parents' blessing for? Like, it makes sense. It had something to do with Violet.
I think what it could have been is Xaden's going to flee, right? And he's leaving Tyrandor in the hands of Violet now with this move. So I don't know that it's necessarily like them getting married, but putting this plan actually into motion where Violet does become the Duchess of Tyrandor publicly and takes on that responsibility.
Well, I 100% think that's what happened. Like, I think that's why I think they got married and then he did flee. But I'm still convinced, and I'm like holding on to it all happened at the end.
The only other thing that I would say that I think made us really think about it potentially being at the beginning is because we were so convinced that Imogen had wiped her memory at that time. Mm-hmm. And when Imogen says, "What you asked me to do," at minimum, she's been a part of this for a very long time. I'm really excited to learn more of what Imogen knows, but I lean towards them being married the whole time. It could totally be him dedicating himself to Dune. I just wonder if it happened at the same time or if maybe when that dedication took place, he also married her in secret. I could see both of things still being true, but I could totally see him being dedicated.
So this is not my theory. This is Larry Reed's theory. So if you want to see it better explained, then go see her video. But I buy into this theory so much, so I had to share it. So towards the end, well, actually before that, Xaden has said that he's owed a favor from the High Priestess. At the end, Xaden asks Sigale, "Will you forsake me now?" And she says, "What is there left for me to forsake?" He lets her in, and she clearly sees that there is something left of him, which I think is the part that belongs to Violet. Mm-hmm. And Xaden has a specific plan, and Sigale says, "You cannot mean to ... And finishing her sentence with this theory, it would be, "We cannot mean to get married to Violet." And Xaden says, "You saw what happened. It's the only way." Sigale says, "You think she'll help?" Xaden says, "She loves me." Sigale says, "Even if she agrees, no one will ... Possibly meaning that no one will marry you both, given that Xaden is Venin.
Yeah.
And he says, "Someone owes me a favor," which is the High Priestess that he has talked about previously owing him that favor. Brennan specifically says it is a legally binding marriage by the head priestess of Dune Temple, which is the priestess who owed him a favor in the first place. Now, Xaden has left by a note that says, "Don't look for me, it's yours now." And throughout the book, he refers to Tyrandor as she. So it can't be Tyrandor, and I think he's referring to his soul that he's given to her through their marriage. So this marriage would let Violet keep that part of his soul so that he's not ever fully lost, even though he's like fully turned Venin now. And so I think that means that there's this piece of him that can be saved because his soul didn't fully die like it normally would when you turn full Venin. And then as Xaden is going full dark and losing everything, it says in the book, "I stream up the cliffside, fall back at the magic that burns to the touch, and surge north." And then, "I love you," Violet's voice cracks the cold, and a silken thread of warmth wedges itself in the opening before it seals shut, locking it in place. So her "I love you" wedged something in that door. And it says, "No, wait, I grabbed that thread with desperate hands, clawing to keep her as more of the pieces are blown away, lost to the void. She is warmth and light and air and love." So I feel like that also kind of cements that there's like that piece of him that Violet was able to keep, so that door is still wedged open and it's not fully sealed. And Arik told Violet that the only way to save Tyrandor is to protect the temple, which is where they got married. And since he can see the future, it seems like that would tie in well too.
Interesting.
And then I think that her memory was wiped because she doesn't want to be able to tell anybody if she's questioned where Xaden went. I think she wanted that memory wiped because she didn't want to be a problem in this scenario. She wanted to not be able to tell anybody no matter what.
Oh yeah, I totally think her memory's wiped so that she can do what she needs to do in the future without question of her loyalty or her faith or anything like that.
Yeah, 100%. I like that theory a lot. I think that I can see both for sure. I think that those specific items that you guys picked up on, I did not because I was so focused on it at the beginning. So those are really, really good points. I like it a lot. I guess
I don't
really
know.
on
I'm
the fence.
conflicted.
I'm conflicted right now. You made me think a lot though, and I will decide before the fourth book comes out. But it still makes me wonder what happened then with that pink scar and if he really did dedicate himself to Dune. Like those are both really fun. I like that a lot. I'm just so glad you brought that up.
Any other theories on the 12 hours? Like what we think happened besides the marriage?
It's pretty clear that they seem to be trying to get the Isle Kingdoms on board and all of that. I'm a little scared to see what that could mean and what mess we're about to walk into next with them basically being ready to execute Violet right now. We're ending on just such a high point. And it's not going to start off the way that this book did. It's going to be just immediately intense. I'm really excited to see where the next book is going to pick right up. Does anybody else have anything that they wanted to talk about?
I wanted to talk about some of the relationships in the book, and specifically Sawyer and Jasenia.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't think we gave Sawyer any love this whole podcast. I think what he was battling was so crazy, and I was absolutely sobbing like a little girl when he finally got on his dragon. It was so empowering. I don't want to use the word cool, but so cool. He did not stop. He did not retire. He kept going. And when he needed help, he went to Violet, and that was the perfect person and exactly what he needed. And I just absolutely fell in love with him in that moment. But I also just absolutely love him learning signs so he can talk to Jasenia. And I just think they are so cute. So I really hope we see a little bit more of them in book 4. I'm not really sure if their relationship's going to develop, but I just think both of their characters I absolutely love. So I'm so excited to see if they have anything sprinkled in the next book.
I was
totally
crying
agree.
like a baby too, Sarah. Somehow didn't cry when Andarna left, but when Sawyer got on that dragon, I was like, oh my gosh, dude,
Sobbing.
such a great job. Like, you go, girl.
You go, girl.
What other ships did you guys have?
Oh my gosh, Dane and Salone. Everyone?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I love Dane. I've never not loved Dane. I'm so glad that other people like Dane now.
There was one other one I had towards the end of the book. I loved Garrick and Imogen. It was like really sad because it was everything happening with Gwen, but I really did love, I don't even know if it was a friendship or like a ship, but I just absolutely love the way they were treating each other, especially with how Imogen is portrayed throughout the whole series. I absolutely loved it, and I would not be upset if they got together.
It feels like a long time coming with that. And I'm hoping that they figure themselves out. They've been interested in each other for a very long time and they just need to get over themselves.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. My favorite is literally Kat with anybody. I feel like Rebecca has done her so dirty with ripping Xaden from her and then Traeger. I cannot explain how much I would be crashing out if I was engaged to Xaden and he decided to just like leave. Like I'd be down so bad. And then she finally finds a slice of happiness with Traeger, and then Rebecca kills him. She owes Kat an amazing arc in the next book, and I really look forward to it. And I feel like she actually has to give it to us.
Xaden and Kat are so toxic, though.
I'm just saying, if I'm putting myself in Kat's shoes, and she lost, like she was supposed to get married to Xaden, like that's the biggest L to lose. And then she finally finds happiness, Traeger, and then here we are.
Yeah, I totally agree.
There was a couple moments there where I felt like Kat and Riddick had some really cute moments in the book. It was flirty because it's Riddick. But at the same time, that would be so good for Kat because I feel like he would ground her so much and I would just love to see it. I know that's not going to happen. I don't think we're going to see him settle down in these books. If he was to, I feel like that'd be so good for Kat. But if I had to ship her with someone realistically, and if he's not Venom, then I think that Arik would be a very good match for her because they both are from the royal families. And I think that they both know how to respect their positions. And I could see them being a very, very powerful couple moving forward.
Yeah. I could see that. Yeah. I don't know. I agree with all of these.
Oh, let's not forget about Mira and Drake, though. Broccoli has a mission.
You're so right. The meet cute.
I like the back and forth. They are just immediately the same person. I feel like you can tell that they're just going to be able to flow well. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like they have to try that hard, even though they're ignoring the fact that it's right in front of them right now. It's almost like schoolgirl embarrassment that I get vibes from Mira when Drake's around. It just seems like she's trying to be like, so tough. Be mean to the boy that you like.
Oh.
You know what I mean? I loved reliving some of the lighter moments and the tougher stuff sucked all over again. But I'm really glad that we got to all like get together again, talk about the book. We had a few off the wall theories this time and we asked you to put your tinfoil hats on. So let us know what your off the wall theories are too. I'm really excited to get into next month's book as well. We're going to be reading a horror book called Nowhere by Allison Gunn. Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to see you next time on Books and Bubbles.